everybody. Welcome. You are listening to the BIC Life Podcast, where we talk about issues surrounding life and faith in Jesus from a Brethren in Christ perspective. It's an unofficial Brethren in Christ podcast, but we are officially glad that you have joined us today. My name is Ryan. I'm joined by Scott. I'll say as usual, but this is only episode 2, so we'll see what usual actually ends up being, right?
That's true.
So because it is just episode 2, we wanted to take just a couple of minutes here to, again, just kind of for you to get to know us a little bit better. Who in the world are these guys? Why in the world should we be listening to these guys? I don't even know them at all. So Scott, help us to know you a little bit better, man. How was your week? How you doing?
Oh, man. My week, as usual, was busy. I'll just give you one reason why. I actually am on staff with our local high school marching band. So I've been playing drums my entire life. And this is my 5th season with them, being their drumline instructor. So it's been a lot of fun. Last night we were there till 9 o'clock. I didn't get home till 9:20, but it's all good. Our show's finally coming together. We actually had last night was our first practice where we actually had a full show run through. So yeah, it was exciting.
So do you guys have themes for your shows?
Yeah, usually.
So what's this year's theme? Not a theme this year?
Well, I mean, there is and there isn't. So
music is our theme.
That's right. Our theme this year is river. And all of our songs have something to do with a river in the title. That is our theme.
It's like just around the river bend.
It's just good music. We're not trying to. This year we were not trying to do a huge thematic thing.
Okay.
We have done in the past. Oh man, one year we did a show called. One of the songs is called Machines. I actually forget what the
Imagine Dragons.
No.
Okay.
So our band director doesn't like to do pop songs. He likes to do very well orchestrated songs, and so we're one of the few bands, at least that I see locally, that we just don't do pop songs. Everybody else is doing these rock songs and
halftime shows to John Philip Sousa.
No, not quite that bandy. No. There's I like to call it a cool factor. There is a cool factor. To what we do. It's just very high energy, emotional, really good music that's challenging, and that by the time you're at your last show for the whole season and the show as best as you possibly could, it's just. You lay it all out on the field, and it's just a really good feeling. It's not one of those where, hey, we went out and I don't know, we played Journey, 4 songs of Journey, and then we were done. No, this is a lot more technical. So
that's great,
but it's fun.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. I did a lot of high school marching band shows myself back in the day. So
really,
I was in the better part of the band though. I was with the trombones.
No.
Lower brass.
No, so when I was in high school, people would be like, "Oh, you're in marching band?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in the drum line." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. See, yeah, I never got that. My only hope for coolness when I was in high school, man, I was a band nerd. My only hope for coolness was when ska music started.
Oh.
And that was that's my path to being in a real band. And that star fizzled so fast. Ska.
My best friend was super into what's that band called? The Mighty Boss Tones.
Mighty Boss Tones.
Yeah. Oh man. That's all he would talk about.
Oh man. It was all we band geeks had.
That's right. Yeah,
man. But that light has gone out years and years ago. So I have lost any hope of being cool at this point. So I just own my nerdness.
Oh,
and
that's cool though. That is cool.
There you go.
See, you're
awesome.
cool, man.
There you go.
You got it.
For those of you just listening to the podcast, I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt today, which will get the seal of approval from Scott.
Yes, for sure. I'm actually a little jealous that you have your Star Wars shirt on and I don't have I don't have one.
Well, I think
I do
you're
have
recording
one.
in your office though, so I think you
Yeah.
could probably just grab some of your toys and just hold them up. And
But see, I'm trying to like live simply and not buy all these graphic tees, you know?
oh, that's a dig. Well, if it helps, I bought this before I was BIC.
Oh, gotcha.
So
That's
there you
okay.
go.
I have at least one or two. So, but
Very nice.
living simply is our topic today.
It is. Before we get into that, though, we got something fun. We got something fun today. So I don't know, when you're scrolling through social media or you're online or whatever, sometimes you just see the craziest stories. And I saw the weirdest thing where some Icelandic horses have been trained to respond to your work email, so that way when you go on vacation, you don't have to worry about email at all.
Yeah.
Do you believe this is even a thing, Scott? Could
Well,
you believe this when you heard about this?
No, I did not believe it. And yet I felt compelled to check this out.
Yeah, man.
So unfortunately, Ryan, you're not going to be able to see this, but I'm going to show everybody
Sure.
what in the world this is. So this actually is a thing, sort of. Here it is.
Yeah, sort of.
So I'm on the website right now. It's called Outhorse Your Email, right? Now, I actually tried this the other day, and basically what it is this is a gimmick. It's like Visit Iceland gimmick.
They're like their tourism industry kind of a deal.
Yeah, I don't believe that keyboard that everybody else is seeing there in the grass is actually real. I don't think Mr. Ed is out there actually typing everybody's emails, but it is a funny thing you can do. So I'm going to scroll down. We're going to do this right now. So we can choose between 3 different horses. I cannot pronounce those Icelandic names, but I kind of like the one in the middle. This one in the middle says it's assertive, efficient, shiny hair. So I'm going to choose that one.
Oh, man, you need an assertive response to your work emails.
So, all right, I'm going to fill this out. So my name is Scott McFeet, and we're going to pick, I don't know, today's the 19th. Confirm that, and we're going to put our email here. Oh, hey, by the way, in case you didn't know, we have an email address. So it's BIC Life Podcast @gmail.com.
That's right. So if you're ever listening to this or watching this podcast and you've got some questions or something you want to bring up, you just send it to us at our email address there, biclifepodcast @gmail.com. That'll get it to us, and we'll talk about the stuff on the podcast.
All right. So I agreed to the terms and conditions. I did not read the terms and conditions, so hopefully I'm not signing myself up for something here.
Welcome to the party.
I'm not signing up for newsletters from Iceland, so I'm just going to hit the button here. It says write email. So I'll hit that button, and here comes my email. This is what it looks like. It says, Scott McFeet is out of office. During this vacation, Scott has outhorsed all work-related emails to an Icelandic horse called Hrimnir fra Hermanni to free up...
Mjolnir? I think Mjolnir is how you pronounce it.
Let's call him Mr. Ed. So Mr. Ed wrote my email so that I have more time for adventure. And here was his response, and it's just a bunch of gibberish. And he's over here on the left, just like prancing around on the keyboard. It says it affirms. So this must be true. It affirms an Icelandic horse really typed that. So
there you go.
But okay, so what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to hit this button down here. It says copy email, and then throw that in your away message.
You're out of office.
So they're not really trained horses out there.
Yeah,
replying to everybody's message. That's not really what's happening.
But here's my question for you, Scott.
Yeah.
As cool as this idea is, and as cool as Icelandic horses are, I'm sure Mr. Edvard is doing a wonderful job responding to your work emails. But if there was any other animal that you could choose to write your responses to your for your out of office emails, what animal would you choose?
An animal.
Yeah. What's better than the Icelandic horse for responding to your work emails while you're out enjoying your vacation without a care in the world?
Man, you caught me off guard. I don't know.
See, part of you thinks, okay, do you go practical? Do you go like a monkey or a gorilla or something like that has fingers and
Well,
opposable thumbs, or do you go something that's a little more emotional, like a horse or a camel, with just like a cow or something that's just gonna hammer the keys and get your emotions out? You know, like which way? How do you like to respond?
I immediately thought of Planet of the Apes. So I guess I could train, you know, a monkey to reply in a certain way I want him to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember his name, like the main character in Planet of the Apes, but I can't remember. So
I don't know. I don't know. It's probably
Sorry.
Mr. Ed also.
No.
Any talking animal is Mr. Ed. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
For those of you too young to recognize the Mr. Ed references, just do some Google research. You'll be okay.
I'm so sad for you. You know, side note, when Mr. Ed was on at like, what was that, Nick at Night or whatever, there was another show on that I absolutely loved. It was called Get Smart.
Oh
my
yes.
goodness.
Get Smart.
So
That's
good.
good stuff, man. Good stuff. And they did a movie. They made a fairly recent movie within like the last 20 years.
With Steve Carell. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that Steve Carell?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. He's
awesome.
He's like, oh, so good. It's so good. Just watch it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good
Anyway.
stuff. Well, all right, guys. Well, that was just a little something fun before we head into our topic for today. And our topic, as Scott has already previewed for you all, we're talking about living simply. In our first episode, we talked about one of the other core values of the Brethren in Christ, and that's pursuing peace. And so not all of our podcast episodes are going to be about one of the 10 core values. We'd only have a 10 episode run of the podcast, and that would be shorter than we want this to be anyway. But today we are going to be taking a look at another one. And what brought this particular core value to mind was a story that we found online. Scott, do you want to give us a quick rundown of what we found online? Maybe you listening have heard of this story too?
Man, I would love to. And I don't remember what it was. Just full transparency. I mean, I have my own story, but
yeah, right. Well, that's true. Scott's going to be bringing some fun personal recent personal experience to this that I think is going to be really fun. But we're talking about Bishop Lamore Whitehead and what happened to him.
Yes.
He's a pastor at a church in Brooklyn. He streams his services, as most of us do these days, post-COVID. He heads a group of churches called the Leaders of Tomorrow International Churches. And this guy...
Now, hold on a second. So he's not part of the Brethren in Christ denomination, correct?
Very good point. You're correct. Bishop Lamore Whitehead is not one of the bishops in the Atlantic Conference.
So, full disclosure, I don't know anything about this guy. I don't...
Yeah.
And I didn't even read the story. I just listened to you explain it to me like 3 weeks ago or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, let me dig in a little bit here, and then
go for it.
And then we'll talk. And then we'll give some reactions here. So Bishop Lamore Whitehead, he streams his services of his church in Brooklyn, New York, and seems to be straight up, seems to be a really cool guy, really nice guy. I went to his website. The ministries that he and his church do for the surrounding community around them sound legit. I mean, just sound really, really cool. And so what I don't want us to do today is just completely hammer the guy, because it does seem like he's doing some good work. He's got quite a past that he's come out of and is just mentoring and helping people in Brooklyn. And so I want to give the guy props for that. However, one of the things that this guy is really known for is his lifestyle, his flashy lifestyle. So the dude drives a Rolls Royce, crazy, designer suits all the time. And when he was on his live stream recently, he was robbed. So during the live stream, some masked guys come running into the church with guns, and thankfully no one was hurt. Thankfully, they were just there to steal some stuff, but they knew who to go to. They stole the jewelry from Lamore Whitehead and his wife. And of course, our prayers go out to the family for the trauma, and he's got children as well, and to the whole church. It's a horrible thing to happen. However, when they knew who to target, And when all is said and done, they stole over $1 million worth of jewelry from just those two people, Bishop Lamar Whitehead and his wife.
Goodness.
And so the question comes up, what is a pastor doing with over $1 million worth of jewelry on him? In such a way that it's predictable. Like there's speculation that the robbers were watching the live streams for weeks to target him, and they knew right where to go to find the jewelry. And so it's not just something he was just wearing that day as a sermon illustration or something like that. This is the way he dresses. It's the way he presents himself on Sundays to his congregation, to whoever is watching him on the live stream, and in his general life, wearing his suits and Rolls-Royce car. This is how he has chosen to spend his money. And one of the things he says, to the question, why are you so flashy, Bishop Whitehead? He says, it's not about me being flashy. He said, it's about me purchasing what I want to purchase. It's my prerogative to purchase what I want to purchase. If I worked hard for it, I can purchase what I want to purchase. So that's his response to why he's wearing all that jewelry and stuff like that. So that's the gist of the story. Scott, what do you got?
Okay. So my first question is, I can't help but wonder, did he finish the sermon from that Sunday?
Yeah.
I mean, as traumatic as that would be, I would have to think like, we're done for today.
Yeah. Well, my impression is that he didn't, because I didn't watch the stream from that service where it happened, but on an Instagram video he posted later, he said that he chased after the robbers himself. Mm-hmm. Like he got out and took off on foot, and then somebody brought his car around and he chased them, and they eventually lost them. But
they're caught on video.
Just left.
So I mean,
yeah,
that might on video. That might help. So seriously, my first thought is listening to his explanation as to why he has these expensive things, whatever. I kind of have to say, like, I get it. Like he's not wrong. It is his prerogative.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not here to. Maybe I shouldn't be judging him. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like that's up to him if that's how he wants to live his lifestyle. It can apparently lead to being robbed on a Sunday morning. But we're
not here to psychoanalyze the guy for sure. But in his quote from him, he says, if I worked hard for it, I can purchase what I want to purchase. And for me, that kind of displays a misunderstanding of the good gifts that we have in our life, right? He's right in that it's his money as opposed to like mine, or yours, Scott, right? It's his money that he earned as opposed to anyone else. However, it kind of shows. It goes against the idea that every good and perfect gift comes from God, as it says in James 1:7. And when you make that mistake of where it came from, how you accrued that, it's not by God's good graces, it's just by my own work. It can lead to a selfish use of that gift, whatever that gift is. Because it was given to me, I earned it, I can spend it how it's my discretion, not anyone else's discretion, which puts money under your authority versus the authority of God. Yeah. And I think that's where there's a lot of disconnect comes in for a lot of people when they see a pastor who has his own private jet, right? A pastor who has his own Rolls Royce, a pastor who, like all this stuff. That's where so much disconnect, even for people who aren't Christians or who don't go to church, there's this understanding that like, we're not supposed to be in this for the money.
Right.
We're not in. Now, he does say that he gets some of his money from real estate ventures and, other actual, business ventures that he has. And that's fine too. But again, any money gotten from that, even if not from ministry, we as Christians would believe is a gift from God and should therefore be under his authority.
So I can't help but think, like, first of all, you and I, here we are sitting in America. We're in like, even though you and I have what we feel is an average or maybe below average salary,
Sure. Modest, at least.
Man, we simply because we have running water, a roof over our heads, maybe even a car. I mean, we're already in the top, like, I think it's like 1% of the population in the world. And we tend to either not know that or we forget that. So, being humbled in that way, it's not like, I guess I'm challenged in my thinking in that, whatever the issue is with buying $1 million watches, that same kind of issue still applies with maybe me buying too many comic books. You know what I mean? Or something like that. It's the kind of the underlying deal. So I immediately thought of 1 Timothy 6. So I'll bring it up here. It says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. So, I mean, that's a pretty stark warning there from Paul, who's writing to his younger protege Timothy. But these are truths for all of us.
Can you read again, Scott, those last couple of lines from that passage?
For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Love of money is literally, I'm looking at the Greek here. It's literally love of money. It's the root or the cause of all kinds of evil, like evil behavior.
And I don't have it in front of me. I'm familiar with the passage, but I want to hear the specific wording. What does it say will be the cause of being pierced?
Yeah. So the next line says, some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs.
Yeah. And, I feel like that's that we're seeing that a little bit here in this story, that not to say that he has wandered from the faith necessarily, because again, we can't judge that. But this, and we have to be careful here. I don't want to say that he caused this problem, because at the end of the day, it is not his fault that he was robbed. It's the fault of the thieves, and no one else. However, he, through his lifestyle, through his purchasing choices, was kind of a target and was pierced with a grief, pierced with a difficulty that happened. That again, we're sorry that happened, and we do lift up his family in church and prayer, but this combination of the money with his faith, and seeing that it's okay to live in the way that he is right now. To me, the word that comes to mind is syncretism, where you take our faith and you mix in gods of other faiths, right? This is one of the things that Israel was warned against repeatedly, but they consistently brought it in, right? The gods of other people groups, as they conquered them or as they incorporated all these other belief systems into their own belief in Yahweh God, and that was like no, right? Big no. So that's syncretism. And I think about the different gods in our different societies. So Scott, you were talking about how, globally we would be considered very rich, right? You and myself, even though in our immediate contexts, we have more modest salaries, but globally we are very rich. In America and in Western, more affluent societies, money would be one of our big gods. And so when you combine those with our faith, then you end up with syncretism. And it may not be money in another country, right? It may not be something else where affluence and money are the big deals there. But maybe it's something else, maybe it's some kind of familial structure or cultural, things with larger cultural importance. But syncretism, I think, is one of the big dangers with in that from that story.
Okay, so syncretism, would you say, is like, I think what you're getting at here is taking our Christian values and maybe our American values of work hard, get what you want when you want it, and then kind of merging them together, like syncretism. Really the kind of the American dream, big house, white picket fence, like all that kind of stuff. I have to say, it's not money that is bad. It's the love of money.
Right. Yes.
So I'm reminded of yet again, here we are, episode number 2. We're gonna use this book again.
Yeah, man. Focusing our faith.
It's back. I'll put it up on the screen for you, but
it's the best.
Yeah. So there's this lady. I've never met her personally. Her name's Esther Spurrier. She's a missionary in the Brethren in Christ denomination. I believe her and her husband actually lived here in PA. I don't know if they still do, but anyway, she wrote this chapter on living simply. And her husband's a doctor. And she said there was a point in their life where he was going through doctoral school, and she was meeting with a group of other women who apparently they had a group for women whose husbands were going to school to be a medical doctor. And the discussion came up like, well, what do we do? We just have all these burdens because my husband's making this much money. Like, well, I want to get this, but I got to wait for that. And she just says, well, what if we just gave most of our money away? And she said nobody responded. They're all like, that's not even an option.
Yeah.
So then years later, now her husband's actually a medical doctor, and they are making what a medical doctor makes in America. And issues came up because they want to live simply, right? And yet the paychecks are huge. So when the kids say, "Oh, I want the new Xbox. Can we get the new whatever?" and they can't say, "Well, sorry guys, we can't afford it right now."
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have to explain it in other ways, like, we're right now we're not going to purchase this, and this simply just because we have a whole lot of money. We might do it down the road, but we don't. They were afraid that they'd be teaching their kids, how to, I don't know, they'd be building into their kids in the wrong way. Like if they just buy whatever they want, just because they actually had the money, the kids would grow up with this kind of like, this attitude of like, well, I deserve it, I'm blanking on that term, but,
right. Yeah.
Entitlement. That's it. Yeah. I'm entitled. I'm entitled to that. Yeah. Right. So that's what they were afraid of, but they learned some kind of balance with all of that. But their goal was, look, we've been given a lot. We want to use that to bless others. And that's the biblical principle behind living simply.
Right. Which is why I like some of the way the value is stated for the brethren in Christ. We value living simply. And then it says, we value uncluttered lives, which free us to love boldly, give generously, and serve joyfully. This kind of simple living, it's not a condemnation of money or having money. It's about being freed from the mastery of those things to be uncluttered in such a way that we can love boldly, give generously, and serve joyfully. I
was just going to say, like a practical example of that she used in this chapter was, you know, they at one point they had thought about buying a second property and renting it, and then using that as income. And while they easily could have done that, they could have afforded it. They realized, you know what? It takes a lot of time just to maintain our own home. Imagine the amount of time it would take to also maintain a second home. So they were trying to be protective of their time as well, not just their finances. And really, you know, what they didn't need more. You know what I mean? So
and that's where a lot of us, I think that's where most of us land, is I think most of us don't have the financial margin to purchase a second house, right? Where our some danger, speaking, you know, for myself here, is my time being so cluttered, right? Like we, again, God has provided for our needs and we're thankful for that. But, you know, school's starting up soon. At the time of this recording, it hasn't started yet, but it's on its way. And soccer's coming for a couple of kids, dance, and school schedules are crazy. Stuff at church is ramping up again in the fall, you know, for things. And it's just gonna be, you know, Scott, you got your games coming for the marching band. And so you not only have band practices, but you've got the performances as well. It's just things start ramping up. And before you know it, you don't have time to be... I love the word uncluttered. Because it doesn't mean, you know, you have to live minimalist, you know, as much as that would, my wife would love that.
Yeah, same. My wife would love that too. She constantly reminds me.
Yeah, right. So it's not necessarily a call to minimalism. But it's a call to an uncluttered life where we have the devotional I was doing this morning, where we have the room for our neighbors. You know, are we so busy that we don't have the time for a conversation across driveways with our neighbor, or to just stop and talk to somebody, you know, across the street, or as we're, you know, to take a walk and maybe just happen upon somebody and a pleasant conversation ensues, or, you know, just these connection points that happen in the course of life we can sometimes miss when we're so cluttered. One of the questions in Focusing Our Faith says, the question confronting us then is, how can we as brothers and sisters in Christ effectively unclutter our lives while we live in an increasingly wealthy, busy, and complex society? One of the verses that they talk about, they throw out another one, Ephesians 4, verse 28. Ephesians 4:28.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up here.
Yeah, bring it up. But it says, let me know when you got it up there, because I can't see it on my screen.
All right. Go for it.
Cool. So we'll see if I have the same version as what you brought up.
I'm using the NIV.
All right. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. The idea is, let's do work. Let's do something productive. Let's be productive and do constructive things with our time, with our money, with our energy, so that we can have something to share. It's not about accumulation. It's about being generous. You know, so the things that we get, how can we be generous? If you have a larger-ish house, there's nothing inherently sinful in that, but how can you use that to be generous? How can you help, I don't know, visiting missionaries, a place to stay, or foreign exchange students, or people with family coming to visit? How can you be generous with your space, your physical space, and use that? Do you have people over? Are you getting to know people at your church and your neighbors and things like that? How are you using what you have to share?
You know, I think it's interesting. So Paul is saying anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer. So like thieves. And that's what we opened the podcast with.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, in this culture, there may have been times where you're so down on your luck that this is your only option.
Right.
But Paul's saying, no, you can work, you can do something useful. not just for yourself, but so that others benefit by what you're doing. Like that's that selfless, Christ-like mindset that God wants his followers to have.
Yeah.
And if Paul's calling thieves to do that, how much more should
Right.
we,
Yeah.
who are not thieves, do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Well, it comes, a couple of thoughts spring to mind when you're talking about that. Kind of a rhetorical question here, but if these good things are from God and meant for his glory and the good of people, of his creation, are we then the thieves when we say, this is mine, I earned it, I can spend it how I want?
Yeah.
And so there's that question, but then there's also, I think about the question that was posed to Jesus about the imperial tax. Should we pay this tax or not? Do you think this is a good idea or not? And to any self-respecting Jew, no, that was not. It was a tax levied by the Romans on oppressed people, and so it would have been seen as an unfair tax by the Jews. And Jesus says, "Hey, give me a coin. Show me what you got." So they give him a coin. It has a picture of Caesar on it. He goes, "Hey, whose picture's on here?" They're like, "Caesar's." He's like, "All right, give to Caesar what's Caesar's, and give to God what is God's." And he says that, and of course it's a brilliant answer. He doesn't get trapped in any sort of corners that they're trying to catch him in. It's a brilliant answer. But what I love also about it is that he's saying, all right, whoever has the image, whatever, this is Caesar's because it has his image on it. But who else has, so if that's the case, whatever has Caesar's image goes to Caesar, and whatever has God's image goes to God. Who does it say has God's image? That's us as people. We are made in God's image. And so we are to be given to God. We are to do whatever we can to present his people, to God for his redemption, for whatever work he's wanting to do in their lives. And so, when you think of the tension of money and ministry and life and how we're supposed to live, being able to give generously, it's not just about giving our finances, but we're talking about image bearers of God. And how can we serve them and give them back to God as an offering, as a sacrifice for us? Our own work. We as image bearers, how can we give ourselves back to God? Well, by serving His people and loving His people and His creation.
So I guess in a nutshell, if we were to have a whole lot of money, the temptation is there to just kind of live extravagantly, right? And it's this whole thing of like wanting more and more and more, and we clutter our lives in every single way with stuff and with our calendar and just with all these things. And what you're saying is that can deter the work of the Lord. Like that can hinder the work of the Lord, because not that God can do whatever he wants, right?
Yeah.
But like if we're too busy to even do his work, well, that's a problem. So we're not saying that, living simply just to kind of declutter our lives so that we have a healthier, less anxious lifestyle. Decluttering our lives is really for the purpose so that we can serve and love others, which is what we're really called to do as Christians. Yeah.
Well, your family, you guys at home, right, have been on kind of a uncluttering journey.
Yeah.
And what's been the impetus behind all of that? How's that going?
Well, my wife is leading the charge for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it. I think it's great. It took me a little bit longer to come around.
Yeah.
I'm very much the kind of guy that, like, man, I had a whole video game collection, right, that I've been collecting literally since I was a kid, I had, at one time, I actually had about 100 physical Star Wars books. maybe 35 of which I actually read.
Wow.
I was collecting them, right?
Right.
Yes. We're in a society that we like to collect things. And man, all this stuff just sat in boxes for years. And the mindset behind it was, well, don't get rid of it, because someday that could be worth something. And you know, and on one hand it was. I mean, I did end up selling all of my Star Wars books, you know, and I sold most of my video game collection, and I did get something for it. But there's something freeing when you let go of that ball and chain, right? I got to confess, I did use some of that money to start a new hobby, which I talked about last time, which was, you know, reading some comic books. But still, you know, so we've kind of looked at each space in our house, each room, and it's like, what do we really need? If we've not touched that in like even a year or two, maybe someone else could use it. Or we just throw it out, and that's fine. That's okay. You know? So that's kind of what we've been doing. And the nice thing about that is when each space is done, everything has its place, right? There isn't this sense of too much clutter. And everything, pretty much everything that's there is something we either use or we really value, right? You know, maybe it's something sentimental, but it's not just the idea is, let's not have stuff for the sake of having stuff. I used to deliver furniture years ago, and I've been in a lot of homes. I've been in massive mansions, and we delivered everywhere, mansions to even trailer parks,
to not mansions,
sure. You know, and there were some houses where it was like, oh my goodness, people had wall-to-wall stuff, literally from floor to ceiling, and actually had paths just about as wide as my shoulders to walk through. Now that's a mental health issue there. That's called hoarding.
Sure.
But still, you know, it's that whole, that because it's so cluttered, that causes a whole lot of issues, including anxiety and depression, a whole lot of emotional issues. And it's this need to, like, you feel this need to hold on to all this stuff. Man,
I'll tell you, I was at my previous at a previous place of employment at another church. We had a closet that had just all kinds of office supplies in it, and it was not organized. It did not have shelves. It was just kind of all piled in this closet. And at one point, we needed a paper folder, and so I bought a paper folder, and it was lovely. It was great. And
what does a paper folder even look like?
An automatic paper folder. Have you never used an automatic paper folder?
No.
Oh,
I fold my own paper.
God made these on the 8th day. Okay. These are amazing gifts of God. Okay. Automatic paper folders. I'll tell you, just stick some paper in it, just junk, and it's out. It's amazing. And you can choose whatever, tri-fold, half-fold, whatever. Oh, it's lovely. Anyway.
Wow. All right.
Anyway, I bought a paper folder.
Maybe I'll have to look on Amazon Prime so I can get that in the next day.
Yeah. About a year later, I go in and we're like, all right, we got to clear out this closet. We got to do some work here. So we bought some shelves. We pulled everything out of the closet, and I built up the shelves, and we organized, and it was lovely. In the course of that reorg, I found 2 other paper folders in that closet. So now our church owned 3 paper folders.
Yeah, but
and that's just when you have clutter, you can't see.
Yeah.
You're seeing all this stuff. Your vision is full.
Yep.
But you can't see what you need. I think that's one of the dangers of cluttered life is when you have all this stuff that you see, you can't see what you actually need.
Yeah.
Which can be physical or a spiritual reality, one or the other, however you want to take it. What do you want to say?
Well, one of our students here at church, I just found out he had to clean his room not too long ago.
Yeah.
Just picture a teenager's cluttered room, right? It was so cluttered that when he cleaned out his nightstand, he found like one of his paychecks from work that he never cashed.
Oh no.
like hundreds of dollars from, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was there. Like, wow, come on, man.
Yep. But that's the thing, right? That was something that could be used for his benefit, for generosity, however you want to see it, but he couldn't see it. He couldn't use it because of the clutter surrounding. And so, back in the early part of the Brethren in Christ, living simply was taken very drastically, right? So you had the plain dress, right? There was like a dress code almost for plain dress, how men and women should dress. And that, I think, it's probably taking a little bit too far. The BIC would probably say that today too. But that was the idea. And so taking it to today's context is less about the clothes, less about the cars, less about the house, less about the bank account, and more how are you using those for God's glory and the growth of his kingdom, right? The benefit of other image bearers in your life.
Yeah.
So I was reading, also thinking about some of the early days of the Brethren in Christ. The BIC had a value on communal discernment. Mm-hmm. So whenever you were thinking about getting married to somebody, you would talk to your whole congregation about it, and the whole congregation had to give their blessing. If you were talking about making a big purchase, right? If you were going to purchase a barn or purchase property or something like that, the whole church had to be involved. It was communal discernment. And it just made me wonder, like, that's not so much the emphasis these days, although there can be a lot of wisdom in communal discernment. That said, that's not so much how we do things today. But I had to wonder if Bishop Lamar Whitehead, this gentleman who was robbed on his live stream, if he had asked his congregation about his purchases, like his congregation is apparently fine with him owning this stuff, right? But if he had asked them beforehand, hey, I'm thinking about buying this suit, I'm thinking about buying this Rolls Royce, I'm thinking about buying this jewelry, what might they have said, I wonder?
Well, so we have no idea if he would have done that. First of all, we also don't know. I mean, we live in a culture where you just don't do that, right? Maybe your best friend,
Yeah.
Should I get the 80-inch TV or the 60-inch? Get the 80-inch, man. That's going to be awesome.
If you got the money in the space, you get the 80-inch.
That's right. That's right. No, I'm thinking it's unfortunate. So, like I said, I don't know this what he teaches or anything, but I do know that the prosperity gospel movement, the health and wealth movement in Christian circles teaches pretty much that the more you get, that's just a sign of God blessing you.
God's blessing,
and you must be on the right path because He's really blessing you. And that just kind of stands in stark contrast to what I read from Jesus when He says, "Hey, if you want to be my follower, you need to take up your cross daily and follow me." He says you need to deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. So I definitely don't adhere to the health and wealth movement that basically says if you just have enough faith, you'll get what you want, and or if you can donate the X amount of dollars, then that's proof of your faith, and it will happen. I definitely don't buy into any of that because at the end of the day, it goes back to the love of money, not the love of God. Now, one very famous prosperity gospel preacher recently tweeted something to this effect. I don't actually have the quote in front of me, but it was something like, look, the more money you can make, the more scared the devil will be of you. And that just doesn't sit well with me. I really think what back to that Timothy passage. Let me bring that up. Let's see. There it is. Okay, so that word, it says, those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap. That word for trap, there's think of a snare that like a mouse trap. It gets you, right? Well, that word is that's used for the idea of the schemes of Satan, falling into his traps, that kind of thing. And it's not reflecting the heart of God.
Yeah. That tweet, I was just trying to find that tweet, because that just twists me right up when I hear something like that.
Yeah. No, I think his reasoning is, the more money I have, the more ministry I can do. I just have a problem with the type of ministry he's doing. So
the guy who made the tweet.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe there's something to that. Let's, if we have the means and opportunity, it's not wrong to make a whole bunch of money. But man, to whom much is given, right? Much is expected, or whatever. We can use that not for our own selfish gain, hey, I need a jet, so I'm going to go out and buy it. No, we could use that for other people who have less than us, who literally need running water. Those kinds of things. Yeah.
Well, and it's one of the things. So our last podcast, when we were talking about peace, how pursuing peace can seem so elusive. But one of the things I was saying was, I don't want it, even because peace is so hard, we can so readily accept excuses for not pursuing it, right? In terms of other things that we might think of as more practical. And for this money thing, there's no prohibition against getting a lot of money. And so because there is no teaching expressly against it, it can be very easy to say there's nothing wrong with money itself, and having a large house, and even having a lot of money. That's true. That is very true. However, there are some incredibly large inherent dangers in that. And I think, looking at Jesus' teaching, he talks about money more than just about anything else. And he warns people against it. And not because, again, money is the root of all evil. The love of money is, right, as you specify. But he teaches on it so much because he knows the kind of pull that it can have on people's hearts.
Yeah.
It is such a pull. It's a pull on mine.
Yeah.
It's a big pull on mine. And so, this value of living simply, if we can emphasize that, I think, and in the way we live our personal lives, Scott, with the way you and your family are working on that, that can seep in and influence our hearts, hopefully just as much as, or more than a love of money or other temptations that might come at us. It's just there are times, there's some movie jump scare moments where it'll be panning across a really cluttered space or busy space, and the bad guy is waiting in there and panning out, and then they jump out at you and you don't see him because it's just one face among a million things, right? When you're cluttered, when you've got so much space, so much stuff in your space, you can't see the dangers. You can't see the temptations that are inherently just sitting there staring at you in the face. Money, the accumulation of stuff, whatever it is, a massive closet filled with more clothes than you'll ever wear, shoe collection. I mean, just all this kind of stuff. Again, inherently not wrong, but you'll miss the temptations that are sometimes just staring at you in the face. And one of these days it could jump out and bite you.
This is a struggle probably for all of us, right? And in different ways. But I will say, at least for me in my own experience, when I'm tempted by the desire of really wanting to purchase something it's not a need, it's definitely a want, right? I don't need it now, but man, that desire to just get it. I could get it on Amazon and have it in a day or two, right? Yeah. But I don't necessarily need it, But man, so all I'm saying is, I'm sure you've felt that. I'm sure our listeners have felt that. That kind of stuff really occupies our mind a lot. Like it almost consumes us to the point where until I finally buy it, then it's released.
Yeah.
It's like the high is over. I bought it. It came, usually the high is over after you open the Amazon box.
Right.
But man, it's definitely a mind shift. So I think of a few scriptures. I'll bring them up here. So I think of Romans 12, verses 1 and 2, where Paul's urging the Christians that he's writing to. He says, in view of God's mercy, I urge you to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. And here it is. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. What's the pattern of this world? At least today, the pattern of this world is just get whatever you want, work hard, and you'll be able to achieve whatever you want and get whatever you want to live that, life, that kind of lifestyle. But he's saying, no, don't conform to the pattern of this world. Transform yourself by the renewing of your mind. Why? Well, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Goes back to what you were just saying a couple minutes ago. When our lives are so cluttered and consumed by not living simply, our minds our heads aren't even in the right space to even begin to think about what God's will is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're so distracted. So for me, I don't get this perfect. This is a lifelong journey, I think. That I'm on. It took a lot for me to just sell the last of my video games. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of hurt a little bit. But now that they're gone, it's like I don't have this tie to that thing anymore. And I still have the memories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
I love that. Like that's. And I don't hurt as bad as I thought I would, right?
It's not as bad as you thought.
If anything, it's nice to have room on the shelves for something that I actually need.
So let's.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go. You're going ahead.
I just have one more thought, really.
Yeah.
For me, this all goes back to having a heart that reflects Jesus, and I don't think there's any better example than the widow's offering. I don't know if you remember this one. This is in Mark 12. Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins worth only a few cents. Calling to his disciples, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others. They all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." I'm not saying that we have to empty our savings accounts and give it to someone else, right? But I'm saying that the heart behind this, not being so tied to stuff and money, so that that money that she gave to the temple treasury, that was to be used for other people. The priests lived off of that kind of stuff. And the poor were supposed to live off of that kind of thing if they were actually all on the up and up there. But that was part of their society to help those who were in need. And here, this lady who had nothing, she didn't even have a husband anymore, which in that society is like,
that would have been really tough.
It's ruining. Sure. It's really tough. And she gives everything.
Well, I think that kind of goes back where I was about to go. So that was really good. So I was going to say, all right, so let's bring this around. What does this mean for us now? Right. So so I'm not, I've got a house that is sufficient to fit my family of five. I've got a modest, middle class income from my church. What does this mean for me? Because
Mm-hmm.
my schedule is not about to get easier. It's not about to get more uncluttered. It's about to get a lot more cluttered as we head into the busyness of the school year. And like I said, all the stuff I ran off at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us are heading into that time of life. A lot of us have this cluttered stuff that in some ways we can't really get rid of because we want our kids to enjoy extracurricular activities. We want to, we want to, there are some things that are good. But how can we start? Because I don't want people to leave here just feeling all guilty. I don't want to leave here just say, "Oh, you're guilty if you can't live off of 1/10 of your paycheck, and if you're not giving away all this stuff, and if you're not, like." So what does this mean? And I think you were really hitting the nail on the head, Scott, with that last one about the heart of Jesus. It comes back to having the heart of Jesus about your stuff. And so maybe there's something like, Scott, for you, getting rid of your video games and some of those Star Wars books that once you exercised that releasing, you're able to stand on the other side and say, okay, that wasn't so bad. And actually, I've got some more space on my shelves. I've got a little more space in my brain and in our basement, in my life, whatever it is. So maybe for you, if you're listening to this or watching this, maybe for you, it's like, there's just some stuff in that corner of that room that I've just been needing to get to. Maybe I go over there and I decide to keep 5 things, right? Or I get rid of 10 things, or I just at least just evaluate what I've got there and just say, you know what? I haven't used this thing. I haven't looked at this thing in 10 years. I don't need it. It's just, so maybe there's just some small steps we can take to either physically declutter, or maybe there's some events or commitments that you've got that you can say no to and just give yourself one more night of the week in which to be home with your family or read a book or whatever it is. Maybe there's some small practical steps you can take to unclutter your life so that, as the value says, you can love boldly, give generously, and serve joyfully, because none of us are going to do that if we don't feel like we have the space to do that.
Right.
So we got to create the space first.
Yeah. I have a couple thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, let's wrap it up with that.
Yeah. So first of all, if you're finding yourself living in a cluttered life, it is a process to kind of declutter. It's not like a light switch that can just be turned off.
Yep.
It takes a while. So I don't claim to be an expert at this. Honestly, I look at my wife, who is really taking this seriously, and I'm more motivated to take it seriously. I'm encouraged to live this way because really of her heart, and just watching her do this, and being okay with, getting rid of things. Mm-hmm. As hard as it was to get rid of some video games that I treasured, it once you start that ball rolling down the hill, it keeps going. And it's like, yes, I'm accomplishing something. It feels great. The other thing that I always love to tell people is, as best you can, program your priorities. What I mean by that is take a look at your life and your schedule. Is there anything on there that you would say, this is not a priority? And once you kind of come up with a list of priorities, like priorities like you mentioned your kids maybe are in sports, that kind of stuff. Like family should always be a priority. Maybe your kid doesn't need to be in 5 different sports teams. But being there for our kids, that is a priority, and I'm going to program that into my life, right? So I don't know what it's going to look like for our listeners, but programming our priorities, first and foremost, like reflecting the heart of God. Like what on my calendar actually reflects the heart of God? Is that a priority or not? Because if it's not a priority, then that can take a backseat. Maybe I don't even need it on my calendar. You know, and it's one of those things. Once you kind of have a feel for what those priorities are, then you got to prioritize.
Yeah.
So, you know, as a pastor, I come up, and I'm sure you know this, you feel this, kind of come up against the whole tension between family time and church time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I am very much, hey, my family is my first ministry priority. Mm-hmm. No one else trumps that, right? Mm-hmm. However, there may be instances that are like emergencies at church or whatever, and my family understands, okay, they need their pastor now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there is that kind of balance, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't really have another example, but if people are listening and thinking, what do I do in my life? How do I know what's a priority? Well, maybe kind of think of it this way. Well, what honors God most? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's let that be a priority.
Yeah. And what's draining you versus what feeds you, right?
Yeah.
And are there some ways, because you can't give out of what you don't have.
Right.
You can't be generous with encouragement if you're not feeling encouraged.
Yeah.
You can't lift each other up if you're not feeling lifted up. If you're feeling deflated, like all that kind of thing. So find some stuff that can build you up. Make time for the people in your life that will build you up and grow you in Christ and grow your maturity and Christ likeness, all that kind of stuff. So that way you have the ability to then give that to others.
Even rest, man. Rest. Yep. That needs to be a priority.
Mm-hmm. Naps are not of the devil.
Or hey, here's an idea. Get 6 to 7, more than 6 hours of sleep a night. Like that. That has to be a priority. Oh, yeah. I understand there are times in your life where sometimes that's just not possible, especially with super young kids.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But that's a season in your life, There are other ways to rest. That's just, anyway.
Yep. That's good stuff, man. Well, so anyway, if you're listening to this or you're watching this and you've got some ideas for how to unclutter your life, or how you've been able to live simply. Maybe you've gone from one kind of schedule to another. Maybe you and your family have made some choices. We'd love to hear about those ideas, so we can bring them up on the next podcast or in a few podcasts later or something like that. We'd love to be able to share ideas, because we also would love to be not just a part of identifying a problem, but of also being able to help identify some solutions. So if you want to help us with that, again, it's BIC Life Podcast at gmail.com. Feel free to hit us up there at that email address for anything, questions, comments, or whatever. And we'd love to hear from you. So, Scott, I think that's about it. You good?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
All right, man. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, and we'll catch you for the next podcast.
Take care.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the BIC Life Podcast. Brethren in Christ churches exist to follow Jesus, serve others, and make disciples. If you're looking for more information about the BIC denomination, or if you're looking for one of our local churches, head over to bicus.org. And if you'd like to get in touch with us at the podcast, you can do so by emailing us at biclifepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.